Welcome again to the Southern Report. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm continuing my series where I am introducing the prospective parliamentary candidates for Reform UK. And by introducing, I am interviewing, and I now have the utter privilege to introduce to you Martin York, who is the prospective candidate for Reform UK for Congleton. And we will start off with our usual geography lesson to best describe where Congleton is, and I will leave that in the incredible, capable hands of Martin York to do that. Martin, thank you so much for joining me. It's an absolute delight to meet you via the digital medium, sir. So thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
So if we'll start off with my usual map of the UK, and my own understanding of maths is that we'll get people to focus on the Liverpool, then Manchester, and then just slightly go up, and then I will bring on your constituency map of Congleton.
Yep, that's it.
And then a clearer map, more detail.
Perfect.
So on our UK map, whereabouts are you situated? Whereabouts are you, sir?
About 20 miles south of Manchester.
Okay, brilliant. Martin, what has drawn you to this point where you are putting yourself forward to stand as the prospective parliamentary candidate for Congleton? What is some of your story and your motivation behind doing that?
Okay, let's go back about a lot of years when I was in the RAF, and at that point, dear old Edward Heath decided that we were going to join the Common Market, as it was then called. I thought that was a big mistake. I've always believed in the sovereignty of our country, and I, for some reason, foresaw the future in terms of, this ain't a good thing. We're going to get wound into something that we don't really understand. We've got all of our overseas links with the Commonwealth, with Australia and Canada, New Zealand, and we had a very good trade going on with them. Why do we need to get involved? Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike Europe. I travel there a lot, and I like the countries. But at the point, I thought this is not a good idea. Then Harold Wilson held his referendum. I must have been one of the few in the 20% that voted no. So all the way along, I've been believing in the sovereignty of this country. Okay, and then I got involved with my career, outside of the RAF in the tech world, and I guess for many years I was totally immersed in commerce and business and getting things done in that regard. And then as things wound down, we formed a sales and marketing agency back in 2001, and that went quite well. And then things started to go absolutely bonkers, with Blair taking us into Afghanistan and things of that nature, and the Iraq war. And I get more and more disillusioned with what was going on in the political world. And then along comes what Richard Tice now calls very aptly the con-socialists, with our dear friend who's now the Foreign Secretary as Prime Minister in league with the Lib Dems. So everything started to go to left of centre, and it was obvious that Europe was starting to take over more and more of the way this country was run. And then along comes the Brexit campaign, and that's when I really started getting involved. I thought, I'm getting on a bit, but I think I've got to get my hands into this because, it's passion. There's so many things wrong in my view that needs fixing. So I did a bit of campaigning for the referendum, and soon after Nigel formed the Brexit Party, I joined. Put my name down for the European elections. Obviously, I was not in the in crowd at the time, and that's fine. But I campaigned for it, got involved with it, met the people, and thought, these are my kind of people. You know, we think the same way. And then general election comes along, and I put my name down for that. So I actually was made the candidate for Macclesfield. Nigel decided that we weren't going to be in Conservative seats, so that's when my dear old mate John Kelly, who's the national organiser, phones me up and says, I need someone in Wallasey, can you please do it? Which is about an hour and a half away from here. So if you can imagine campaigning in Wallasey in the pouring rain in November, December of 2019, in an area that I don't know, but we had a good battle. I learned a lot about campaigning. I really enjoyed it, and came third, beat the Lib Dems, which was absolutely great news. And then along comes COVID, and we're all locked down, and everything goes wormy. And I'm thinking, what on earth's going on? And then we get what you mentioned earlier on in our preamble, you know, the truss, what I call the debacle of May, Boris, Truss, Sunak, you know, and it just, I said, I've had enough of this. And I got in touch with the Reform Party and said, I'm back in the frame, mate, you know, let me get involved. And that's where I am now. I know a lot of people, you know, from my days in the Brexit Party, and I've been involved now since March last year. I actually came on board and been campaigning ever since.
Martin, thank you.
I am motivated to fix this country.
Right. Martin, thank you for that story. And it's wonderful when you hear that, because it is about people's journey and their passion and why they want to engage and say that. And I find it fascinating when you're talking about your business experience, getting immersed in that, and then you are watching what's going on, and then there's this disconnect, and then you're saying, right, no, I need to jump in. When you're talking about campaigning, can I ask you a question and say, what were the lessons you learnt from actually campaigning and beginning to do that? And congratulations for beating the Lib Dems, because that's no small feat from a standing start of then getting engaged. So what were the positive lessons that you learnt from campaigning?
I guess the first thing is you've got to get a team around you pretty quickly. You know, it's a very, very lonely thing if you're knocking on doors on your own, and not very safe either. Come to that, you know, it's you know, you need to work with people, and working with great people is a very positive thing, and motivational as well. It's amazing how, you know, ordinary folks want to help you and work with you. There are some negatives, you know. I've been called all sorts of things on street corners, and you know, you just learn to laugh it off. The one thing I do is ask my supporter if someone's getting stroppy, just to get their phone out and video it, and that stops it straight away.
Absolutely. So, saying that, going into campaigning mode then, Martin, sir.
Yep.
There you are in Congleton now. You're knocking on doors. In a few minutes, what is your pitch to them? What do you think their specific concerns are about Congleton? What, as we say, retail politics, what things are you going to do for the constituents of Congleton? What are their concerns?
Right. Well, I think the biggest concern in this area is the way that the local authority deals with things. Cheshire East is, if you mention the word Cheshire East to anybody in this constituency, you get black looks. I don't think anyone's got a good word to say for them. Going back into what I call the 20 teens under a Conservative local authority, moving into the last two local elections where you've got a consortium of Labour-led with a bunch of independents who are really Labour under a different skin. And things have just gone from bad to worse. I mean, it was very close to declaring, you know, the section, I think it's a 142 section where they go bankrupt. Very close to that. There's been all sorts of issues. I mean, if you look at the roads, they're an absolute disgrace, mind you. That's true over the whole country. If you look at the overspend the things that have gone. I put a freedom of information request into the council when they were going through the replacement of a CEO, because they hired through an agency CEO temporarily at a rate of over 400 grand a year. I mean, wow. That's obscene, especially when it's going through an agency, and typically agency fees, as I'm sure you know, are in the order of 20%. So they're paying through the nose to get an interim CEO. They fixed it now. They've got a full-time one, and I think he's on about 200k. As a result, I thought, I wonder how many people that they employ through an agency. Why are they doing it? So I put a freedom of information request in. It's over 500. The cost is 13 million quid a year. And if you work out the agency fees on that, it's huge. I could go, oh yeah, the latest one is we've got a big refuse and fly tipping problem in the constituency. Fly tipping's rife. They've closed 2 of the household recycling centres. The only one now is in Alsatia, which is in the west of the constituency. There was one in Congleton, they closed that. So people now have to drive probably 10 to 12 miles to dispose of refuse that you would normally not put in your bin. So there's been a lot of that. And then on top of that, they start charging for green waste. So, you know, if you mention anything of that sort to the local people here, you know, we get very, very upset with that kind of thing, you know. And there's a load more stuff. I mean, overspending is another issue. Typically, what they built a lovely new leisure centre a couple of years back, and it took a long time to build. It was about a year and a half late opening and an overspend of about 1.5 million. I could go on at great length, you know. Basically, the issue is that no one holds Cheshire East to account. Right. No one. My belief is it's not the job of an MP to go around fixing potholes or anything of that nature. That's not his job. What he or she rather, I should be more politically correct on that, I guess. But what they should do is hold the local authority to account. Now, right now, our dear MP, whose name I won't mention, doesn't seem to be doing anything of that nature, Conservative. The Labour candidate seems to be a very nice person, looking at their profile and their leaflet and all that sort of stuff. But I can't see a Labour candidate or MP getting into a battle with Cheshire East, which is a Labour-run council. So basically, from my point of view, I reckon I'm the only person who's going to go hold their feet to the fire when it's necessary. And I think that's a really important factor in this constituency, because it's the local issues like that need doing. There's a mushrooming of new housing going on in the moment. About 5 years ago, a ring road was built round Congleton. By the way, it was incomplete and it didn't do the job properly, and was still congested in town. Again, a planning issue that went wrong because there were 2 major roads that weren't linked. So you've got a ring road that's supposed to go around the whole town, and it misses 2 of the extreme roads going out of town. So you can imagine. But what's happened is the town boundary has now grown out to that ring road. It's full of new build development, and there's nothing wrong with that. None of it's social housing. It's all estate built by, you know, builders like, I can't name them, you know, but the national ones, putting up posh houses for, you know, profit. Where are the new surgeries for doctors? Where are the new dentists? Where are the new schools? Where's the infrastructure? It's planning gone mad. You know, they just have not dealt with this properly. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be dealt with on a personal basis with the, you know, the leader and the council itself. You know, why are they letting this going on? And on top of that, I don't see much inward investment going on in terms of creating jobs in the area. You know, I don't think we are a poor constituency. There's not a high level of deprivation if you look at the electoral calculus data and all the demographic data. You know, there are areas where things need to be done. There's no doubt about that. But generally, Congleton constituency is a reasonably well-off environment compared to a lot of inner city deprived areas. But at the same time, there are pockets. There's areas where, I mean, the council apparently have now just decided that they've canned their school meals contract with a company that was putting 87 schools. All of a sudden, they canned it. So there's a load going on that needs sorting out.
So to recap, you're talking about the employment agencies. There's fees of 30 million plus on top of that a 20% finding fee.
I guess it's that. Yeah, I mean, no, these are agency employed people. It's not a finder's fee. It's they are working as a what do you call it? A temp almost. Yeah.
Right. I do apologize. So that is an ongoing cost. Then recycling, the fact that people are driving various distances. You've just talked about this ring road, the ring road that's still the completion issues.
Oh, it won't be done. It's never planned.
Right. And to hold the council to account in regard to the way the decisions are being made and the way it's funding and the way they're using that money and people's money is what is one of the number one priorities of what's stressing people out. You talk about this leisure centre in regard to getting appointments for GP surgeries. I think there is a strain on that kind of infrastructure. You're talking about all the new house builds that's going on, and they haven't thought the infrastructure that needs to be in place, as we said, like doctor surgery, etc. Is that a fair summing up?
I think, well, that's my perception,
Yeah.
And that's not just my perception, it's through talking to people, obviously. The infrastructure thing about the housing is obvious. There are no new doctor's surgeries going up. There are no dentists. Getting a doctor's appointment is a long process, even if you can get one on the phone. So generally speaking, I have no problem with building property for people to live in. It's a good idea, but you've got to put in the other stuff to go alongside it.
Martin, what about hospital infrastructure? Have you got enough resources along those lines in the area?
Right. Well, there is one bit of good news in that the hospital here is basically in Macclesfield or in Crewe. Okay, Macclesfield is outside of the Congleton constituency, and Leighton Hospital in Crewe is outside, but it's all within the Cheshire East Trust area. But there always has been a small, what they call the War Memorial Hospital in Congleton, and that's been under threat for some time now. But it's just received £5 million worth of funding, so that's good news. It's going to stay. It deals with minor injuries. It deals with blood tests and X-rays and stuff of that sort. And it's really important for the local people in Congleton and around to be able to get somewhere locally for those sort of services.
In a write-up, you described Congleton as quite a large constituency. So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
How will you keep up these discussions? How will you engage with the constituents? What's your plan?
Right. There are 10 wards in Congleton. Right. Okay. You've got Congleton Town, which has 2 wards, Congleton East and Congleton West, which represents about 12,000 people of the constituency. And it's growing because I've mentioned all these extra houses. But then you've got Alsatia, which is about 8 miles away. And that's another town of about 10,000 people. Then you've got Sandbach, which is another 10 miles, not in the same direction, but there's another 10 miles from Congleton, another town of about 10,000 people. And then you've got Holmes Chapel and the surrounding area in the Dane Valley ward. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of concentrated people. So the first thing I've done is to get my team together, and we've got people in each area who are working with me and talking to people You need a team if you're going to be in politics. You can't do it on your own. And then you've got one whacking great big area, which is mainly agriculture and places of that nature, which is called Brereton Rural, which is the biggest ward, and it covers probably 2/3 of the geography of the constituency in terms of land area. So it's quite a large area, not as big as some of the big rural ones, but it's basically centres of population and a large rural area. And the only answer is to get out into those towns and talk to people.
What are the challenges? What are the challenges do you think, like farmers, the rural community are having at the moment? Have they begun to raise those with you?
I actually at this time have not yet been out into the rural bit. That's on the plan to do later. I've been concentrating on my job is to get votes.
Mm.
Okay, so it's who was it? I think I can't remember the name of the guy, but that famous American criminal who said, "Why do you rob banks? That's where the money is." So it's that kind of thinking. I've got to get votes, and the votes are where the people are.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I'm not ignoring the agricultural area. Farming in this country is under real pressure. You've seen the tractors driving all over the place in London even now. The Europeans, particularly the Dutch and the Germans, have started this. This is all part of what I call the Great Reset mentality, which I'm sure you're aware of.
No, and it's important. It's very important that we raise these things and discuss these things because they aren't. They are out. They are out there, and you're quite rightly. When we look at all the European protests, we've seen there's been protests in Scotland, and of course in England and Wales.
Yeah.
And food security is an extremely it's a valuable issue because if we don't have food, then we are not going to be able to eat. And also, I can appreciate that it's quite challenging within a constituency, which is very large, but also it's diverse in one sense. But the farming community is absolutely, it's so important. But I commend you for the strategy and the plan. I think you talked about being able to have like sort of town hall meetings, so to speak, where you can visit and just engage with people, ask people to come along. Is that a fair assessment?
That's part of it, but what we also do is we stand on street corners waving banners and handing out leaflets and talking to people as they pass, because it's actually the people on the street that matter.
I think at this point it would be a really good thing to, Martin, if people wanted to reach you, how could they get in contact with you? How could they email you? How could they phone you? How can they get in contact with you to engage with you and raise their concerns?
Well, the best way is by email, because I read it regularly. I mean, I'm an avid techie. I'm in front of my computer screen for probably about 5 or 6 hours a day, doing research and all sorts of other stuff. We're working on a profiling system for what kind of voter are you and where are you, which one of my techie friends and I are working on. So the best way to contact me is Congleton@reformuk.com.
Brilliant. Martin, it's a very interesting, when you were raising about the leisure centre, and I'm interested in this, are there enough facilities like that within the constituency leisure wise? Are there enough swimming pools and stuff like this?
Well, it's pretty much centred on Congleton. There are not enough in the other outlying areas. I mean, that's really the issue.
Right. Sorry.
There's because of the kind of constituency it is. There's quite a lot of parkland and football pitches and things of that sort. I think there are 1, 2, 3 golf courses that private ones that I can think of. No, 4. Sorry, 4 golf courses. There's a thriving Congleton town football team. I know Sandbach have football and rugby, cricket teams. So there's a lot of sporting activity that goes on, and they're pretty well supported.
Brilliant, brilliant. Because health, people getting fitter, looking after themselves, that has a positive effect on people's use of the National Health Service.
Yeah.
Would it? Yeah. Yeah. Martin, is there any other thing, any other issue that you think is on people's hearts? What is crime? Is there enough police to serve the constituency?
Again, you rarely see a Bobby on the beat, as I would say in my days in London. You don't see very many police people walking around. They're all in cars, and I think crime is not as bad as in many other places, but there are pockets of drug dealing and things of that nature that you're going to get anywhere in this country now, unfortunately. We don't have that much violent crime. We do get the odd, robbery and things of that nature, and household burglaries as that goes on. But it's not as bad as other areas. But police cars streaming along with their blue lights running at about 4 a.m. happens occasionally. I live near a main road, and you can hear them going down there. But I don't think it's as big an issue as it is in other areas, to be honest.
What about further education facilities, colleges, etc.? What are the concerns, the opportunities for young people in the area, employment, etc.?
Right. I can't think off the top of my head of what I would call tertiary educational institution. I don't think there is one. I'm pretty sure there isn't. There's a good selection of secondary schools in every town and area. So from that point of view, yeah. I was looking at some statistics the other day, excuse me, where it's how far people travel to work, and that gives you a clue as to where the employment is. And there's something in the order of 10 to 12 miles, according to the Office of National Statistics, is a typical commute for people living in this constituency.
That's not a bad commute, I have to say. But
not too bad, no. And quite a lot of people go to Manchester and Crewe and places of that sort. There is local industry. I mean, Siemens have got a fairly big plant in Congleton, and there's quite a lot of industrial estates with small businesses, medium-sized businesses.
Right. Well, that's encouraging. What about business rates? How high do you know how high business rates are? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot in one sense, because we can go and find these answers out. But how are business rates affecting local businesses, new startups, and stuff like that?
What's interesting is that take Congleton High Street. Quite a lot of shops were empty, and they're now seeming to fill. There's still a few empty ones. So from a shop point of view, it seems to be buzzing. Sorry, I've got a bit of a throat.
Do you know why? Have a drink. Have a drink. That's why we have a drink on standby. It's important.
Too much talking. Yeah.
No, you're doing brilliantly. Thank you. So you were just talking about the high street, yeah, and shops that were open.
Yeah,
or not.
And if you look at, I mean, we have a thriving market every month in Congleton High Street. It's very busy every month. Sandbach Town has a market every Thursday, and it's pretty busy. So from that point of view, I think things seem to be okay. But business rates, I don't actually know the number, so I'm not going to make them up.
Well, I know that in talking to other people, of course, up and down the country, they are having an effect on businesses and how businesses can expand. It's a huge expense. Martin, Is there anything else you would like to say in regard to pitching yourself, encouraging people to vote for you? As you've said, it's getting out there, getting the votes, and is there
Yeah, I
anything that
mean,
you would like to
one
say?
thing I would say is that I got a leaflet the other day from the Labour candidate, and that's what happens. Everyone puts their story out there. The one thing that disappointed me in that was it was a bit of negative campaigning. They were saying it's a two-horse race between the Conservatives and Labour, putting the point that Conservatives were in the lead, saying it's close, and then it was a bar chart with Conservative, Labour, and then the others down here, with a big thing over the top. These cannot win, about us, Lib Dems, and the Greens, and showing the Conservatives slightly in the lead. Well, that was misleading, okay? Because I know for a fact that according to electoral calculus right now, Labour are slightly in the lead, and we are a close third to the Conservatives. So there's a misleading thing going on there. It's what I would call disinformation. The way we're going at the moment, I can certainly push Conservatives into second place. And if I can get the Conservative disillusioned vote, by the way, my calculations tell me that 25,000 people right now are not going to vote.
Wow.
In this constituency, 25,000. That's based on, I mean, I'm crazy about analysis and stats and this sort of stuff, and I look at it in great detail. In the last election, the Conservatives got 33,000 votes. 33,000 votes. The predicted number of votes in this coming election, according to the stats and the polling and everything that I've looked at, the Conservative is going to be around 13,000. That's a drop of 20,000 Conservative votes. Now, if you want someone who's going to sort out the local issues, who will stand up in Parliament for you locally, and who also will take on the national issues that we haven't talked about today at all, but are, in my mind, as important. Things like this net zero lunacy, the immigration issues, okay, the wokery that's going on, the fact that we've got a bloated state and it needs to be reduced. Taxation is all over the place. I mean, why did you? I mean, I'm addressing this to Conservatives. Why did you put corporation tax up, which does nothing to put growth into the economy and has the opposite effect? It needs those kind of people, to be held to account. We need to talk to them in a sensible way about what is going on in this country, and we need to sort it. So, looking at that, that's a bigger story about, the potential to win here is big. I've done the analysis, and I am the third most likely seat to win in the whole of the Northwest.
Excellent, and the analysis is very important and very, frankly, very interesting, because I'll ask this. You may not know the answer, but I think this is an important reflection. In 2016, when we had the European referendum vote of staying in the European Union or going, what percentage of people in the constituency do you think actually went out and voted?
Went out and voted, or I know the percentage Leave Remain.
Go on, that's a good start.
Right, it was about 49 Leave, 50 Remain. But if you look at it in a more granular level, there are areas where it was about 35% Leave, and others where it was 65% Leave, very much dependent upon the demographics of the various areas. And that's one of the things I've been looking at in detail is the local demography, because it's very important.
Yeah. What was the so the turnout was extremely high in your area to vote for that, and did it then reflect the nationally, which was an extremely high, one of the highest turnout, I think, ever.
It was a high turnout. It was a high turnout. I think it was in the 70+% level.
So when you're facing the fact that 25,000 people are turning around saying they're not going to vote, then that is the group of people that you are also aiming for to vote for you. Yeah. Martin, I know I've asked it. I'll say, if there's anything else you want to say before we go, and I just want to thank you. It's been a delight to have this conversation, and thank you for meeting you. But if to just give you that one more opportunity, and also, can you remind people where they can find you?
Yeah, it's congleton@reformuk.com. Just drop me an email. I'll respond as quickly as I can. I check my emails regularly, and I always respond.
Brilliant. And anything else you want to say to the people of Congleton?
If you vote for me, you're going to get someone who's going to fight for you. I promise you that.
Great. Martin, I just want to thank you for your time, and I will play us out and just ask you to join me on the other side, where I then say goodbye. Whoops. Sorry. Tech issues. I'm having tech issues. I think I'm gonna need your expertise at this rate. But yeah. All right. So I will. I look forward to. It'd be great to do this again, and I look forward to hearing from your progress. So thank you very much for joining me on the Sutherland Report.
Yeah.